let's just say hypothetically, she calls the exterminators. The exterminators open up the floorboard. They see this tiny family living in there. First of all, do they go through with it? Because, and if they do, is that murder? And is it illegal? Is it illegal to spray poison on a tiny miniature-sized person? Do they not have all the same rights that I would assume that any other person, regardless of size, would have?
Are they people?
Ask about Illuminati, since the charting upbeat ducks. Is it Disney mind control? Is this MK Ultra Deluxe? Occult Disney, we go from real to real. Occult Disney, Bohemian Grove and no more real. Occult Disney, ask about Illuminati. Occult Disney, we teach occult to everybody. Occult Disney, the wish upon a star. Occult Disney, you know not to travel far. Oh, Occult Disney, the new brand Pinocchio. Yeah. Occult Disney, it's a fun so adore. Occult Disney, please enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to, I guess it's the Cartoon Cabal today? Or is it called Disney? I feel like we're doing anime, so it's Cartoon Cabal, but Disney did distribute this in the States, so it's kind of a called Disney. I'm just going to call it both today.
Officially the Occult Disney podcast. Still.
We're stuck in the shrubberies of the podcast today as tiny people, I guess. So it makes sense. You know, signs are big, they're hard to read when you're small. It is a many-titled movie. If you look at the webpage or whatever, the wiki or whatever, it's like it's Arrietty, then it's Arrietty the Borrower, and then it's The Secret World of Arrietty. I don't know, which title do you like?
I think I like The Borrowers, which is what shows up on the screen, at least the version that I watched. When the intro comes up, I was like, what happened to The Secret World of Arrietty? I guess it's called The Borrowers now. And then it said The Borrowers and then Arrietty on the bottom. So and after having seen it now, I think The Borrowers makes the most sense, although it doesn't have the same ring as The Secret World of Arrietty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I didn't even introduce ourselves, which, maybe it's someone's first time here. It's Matt here. Hi, it's Paranoid American over there. What is it?
Paranoid American. And did you know that there's not technically a law in the United States that bans eating horse meat, but it's just sort of imposed through various laws? This will be relevant later on. So anyways.
Okay. I've eaten plenty of horse, by the way.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, because Nagano, I live in Nagano. They're serious about their horse. There's a udon shop where I went there like several times because it was near my old office. And then I learned that the Niku was not pork, it was horse. So it was fine. And then like the traditional Japanese places, like you stay overnight, they got the bath, they serve you the crazy big dinner. In Nagano, they'll often serve you raw horse. It's called basashi, and it's actually really good. So if you're in Nagano, try some basashi, eat some horse.
Well, to quote Marion Nestle, who's like a public health expert, like this guy at NYU, his quote was, "We are Americans. We don't eat horses. We consider them pets and inappropriate as food. Full stop."
Okay, if you go with dog with Japanese, they will like gasp in horror. So
now, is that more just because now they feel like they're being compared to someone that's Chinese, and that's the real offensive part?
That might be it, to be perfectly honest.
Like, it's not even about the dog; it's just about the comparison.
Yeah, you know what? I've never quite squared that circle. It might be that. So, or it might be like they like dogs. They really do like dogs in Japan. We don't have dog strollers in America much. Do people have dog strollers in America?
Yes.
Okay, now they do. Okay, I first saw them in Japan. It's been a while since I've been in the States, but
no, it's pretty big.
Okay, the dog strollers have made it there. So, but 20 years ago,
it never looks normal, but it's normalized.
It's normalized. There we go. This movie, I assume it's brand new to you.
Absolutely, never even heard of it. Saw it for the very first time right before we started recording.
Okay, this is the third time I've seen it. But the first two times I saw it were on TV 10 years ago, completely in Japanese. And 10 years ago, my Japanese was definitely on a lower level. So I was only watching this visually the first two times. Like I might occasionally like ask my wife, like, hey, what's happening? But like I didn't get the concept of the borrowers or like it's this weird species or anything. I was just like, I worked out only as a visual story. And I remember liking the movie. So it does work as a just visual thing because it's pretty good looking. It's kind of interesting because we covered Tales from Earthsea a few weeks ago, where Goro, it didn't quite look or feel or sound like a Ghibli, where this one I think does. Would you agree, disagree? How do you feel about this as a Ghibli?
I do agree. One of the things that, and I don't know yet how to put my finger on what that Ghibli aesthetic is that was missing from Tales of the Earthsea versus the Borrowers. I'm going to just call it the Borrowers because that's the real name. I think it should
sure
be.
That's a book, yeah.
But because Earthsea had so much more detail than this one in some regards, where like this one's a lot easier to watch, but it's kind of done masterfully in a way. And then also there was a very specific color palette in this one. And I don't know if I even had that kind of note when I was watching Tales from Earthsea. I mean, obviously they have color palettes, but this one, it felt like so hand-picked. It felt very specific to use all these warm and earth tones. The entire thing kind of had this feel like it was taking place at my grandparents', backyard flower bed or something. And I think, pretty sure that's kind of the feel that they were going for.
Oh, 100%. This does have like kind of something Japanese animation really likes to do, and Earthsea didn't do that much. In particular, was Ponyo does it, Spirited Away does it, all of them do it. Even we're watching Evangelion, and that does it too, where you have this hyper real creation of Japanese stuff. Like I recognize the house in this as the weird abandoned, kind of semi-abandoned, slightly quirky sort of place. Like you'll occasionally see a place that is not like trad Japanese, right? And it's like someone in the 60s or 70s or 80s, the bubble period in particular, had a bunch of money, built a weird place, got old and died. That's very much what this kind of place is. There is a thing in Japan where you got high schools with 2 students because there's been no children born in that town for decades or whatever. And like there's a thing of just abandoned houses in the countryside in Japan. Like they're just all over the place as the society ages, and no people die and the house is just there.
Another note on the color theory in this one, which I thought was really like, this one was more subtle, but as soon as I noticed it, I had to make a note of it. And that's that even in the darkest scenes, when it's completely dark and they have to use like a candle or a match or something in order to guide their way, even in the darkest of scenes in this movie, they never really use black or like a dark gray. Everything are these different shades of colors. The only time you see anything that resembles black are just the outlines of the characters themselves, which gives it such a really good storybook look. But also I kind of feel that if it is revealing this inner, I'll call it the secret world for this one time, if it really is revealing the secret world of these borrowers, you almost feel like you're getting a full glimpse of all of that, because there's so many other animated movies that we've seen up until now that when they're showing you around like a hidden dark place, sometimes just like they go a little overboard and I can't even really see very well what the hell, like the background. Like I know there's background detail there, but it's getting lost in how dark some of the scenes are. And this movie somehow does a masterful job of even the darkest of scenes. There's so much color and there's all this extra detail in it. And I just feel like it adds to this idea that we're getting an actual glimpse into a secret world.
Yeah, I mean, this one's very watercolor looking. And actually, just to really double down the Disney part, I just started reading a book about Claude Coates, who spent the first half of his career doing the backgrounds for, like Pinocchio, Snow White, and all that, and Cinderella or whatever. And then once Disneyland opens, he gets tossed into making rides instead. So he does Pirates, he does Mr. Toad, he does the scary version of Snow White's Scary Adventures, all of that sort of stuff. But it was in his filmmaking or participating in filmmaking, it was talking about how Snow White and earlier in Fantasia, he was like using the watercolor thing. And then you think of the backgrounds of Snow White, very watercolory. and then switching to this is one of those words I see written in museums all the time, but never know how to say. Is it gouache? When it's not watercolor, Gouche?
I think whatever you want to say works. How about that?
Okay, sure, that works.
I'm not picky about the enunciation of words.
I'm not a painter anyway, so I don't know. But
I don't care about no pronouncement.
It's that thicker paint, but and of course I don't think they're using it here. But the thing there is that you have to really think ahead about how it's going to look, because the darker colors will lighten up and the lighter colors will darken up. So everything will become closer to each other. I kind of wonder if maybe that's what they were going for here.
There's a balance here that was not present in Earthsea, and I'm still trying my best to figure out how I can put it in the words, because I'm just slowly understanding it the more I see non-Earthsea Ghibli movies. Where Earthsea, it's almost here's where I'll leave it for now. I'll keep developing on this, but it's almost like a photographer or a camera setting that uses infinite focus, where just everything's always in focus all the time, and it in general can make things look pretty good. Versus a camera that has an aperture and like a focal length, and you're actually like have certain elements in the foreground, background are blurry or intentionally not as detailed. That's what I feel is all these other Ghibli movies, even this one, The Borrowers, is that there's like an intent about where the detail is. And then in Earthsea, it was just like everything gets detail all the time, and it was almost too much. There wasn't an intentional balance about it. It was just that everything was equally high res.
The weird thing is this is basically the same same setup as Earthsea. It's based on like a old 1952 beloved book, I guess. I don't know if she was I don't think she was personally involved in the making of this. Is probably, well, let's check when she died. Let's see. She died in 1992. She was definitely not involved with making this film, so that's a little different than Earthsea, where the author is still around. But it is, the director is Yonebayashi Hiromasa. When he made this, he was not quite 40. So at the time, he was the youngest Ghibli director ever. He's younger than Goro, Sonny Miyazaki. Same thing with Miyazaki on this one. Like, okay, I'll write the screenplay and stuff. And maybe he talked to this guy more than his son. I don't know. He did not loan him Joe Hayashi for the music. Instead, it's the only foreign composed score for a Ghibli, which is Cécile Courbel. I guess that's how you say it. Again, that would be French pronunciation because he's French, which I did look halfway through the movie to see who was doing the music. She wrote the pop songs and the soundtrack. The pop songs kind of like Earthsea, just went in one ear and out the other, right? The score itself I thought was good. That's where I checked halfway through and I was like, oh, is Joe Hayashi actually doing this and just kind of trying to do this, kind of Celtic new agey thing a little more. But no, it is he is, Miyazaki was still keeping that guy to himself, I guess.
I feel like it's good to maybe go over the plot of the movie, and this will probably be a quick one because I think that it's a very simplistic idea, executed well, but it's very simple. Here's all the spoilers, I guess, in one. But a sick dying boy goes to live in his grandma's house, and he gets taken care of by a maid. And while he's there, he discovers that there's this little, for now, I'm going to say action figure sized person. We're going to get into that, but finds a little action figure sized person and her entire family that's living under his floorboards. And once they realize that these humans have found out where they are, they move. The end. Did I miss any big plot points there? I feel like I nailed all of them.
I'm curious if in English they called her grandma, because in Japanese it was an aunt.
Okay, I'm just going with
well, I'm just bringing it up because grandma has been such a thing in these animes, right? So it's almost subconsciously she's still grandma.
I thought that the maid was the grandma the entire time, and then I was doing research into like why is his grandma so evil? And then it was like, oh no, that's the maid of the family. So
yeah, she's just a vindictive old maid. Yeah,
she's the villain in this movie. But that is basically the plot, though, right? Did I even miss any even small detail?
I think that's why I could watch it with no understanding what they were saying the first two times, and it was still like kind of fine, right? Because you can follow that without them talking for the most part. Like I didn't understand that the boy was, dying and about to go have like heart surgery. Or
Well,
whatever.
they only tell you that at the very, very end of this movie. Up until then, and it almost felt, again, maybe I'm overusing the word masterful, but usually a movie will throw that up front so that the main character feels sympathetic and you just feel bad for him, and it makes it feel deeper. In this movie, they don't even tell you until the movie's damn near over. Oh, by the way, this kid's got some terminal illness and he's about to die.
They mention he's sick and that he's about to go to the hospital for a procedure. But yes, they don't give you the gravity of the situation until later in the movie. Because, you assume that, hey, this kid is going to die the next day at the end of the movie, Or you can assume
and what
that
was the Ghibli movie we saw where, like, the mom was in the hospital, Totoro, and it feels like she's about to die. And then it's like, oh, no, she's better. She ate some corn that they brought her in the middle of the night, and now she's good again.
Well, we did have that they're all dead, but that's something you can come up with a lot of movies.
Hey,
I don't think you can do that. This movie, I don't think this movie, I do not think that the they are all dead thing works. Just to spit it out when it doesn't work, right?
I mean, I think that the Arrietty family or her family, the little miniature people, they could all be dead, but the humans maybe don't have to be dead.
Oh, you mean once they're down in their teapot? Well, the boys probably. I mean, 90%. It sounds like he's 90% sure to be dead in 2 days. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, because that would make more sense that not a lot of people can see them. Apparently, right? Some people go their entire lives never even seeing them, only hearing about them, and maybe you can only see them if you're near death.
Yeah, that except well, I guess the maid is old. So
I mean,
she's near death.
She is definitely near death, and she's got some sort of karmic debt now because she almost tries to. I guess that's one of the small details is that the maid, for reasons unknown to me, is treating these tiny little humans like they're bugs, and then she even calls an exterminator to come and just spray, I guess, pesticide to kill them all. And I don't really understand.
She explains directly to them, "You're not doing bugs. You're going to be going for little people." Like she's not like trying to like do any subterfuge about it,
She does mention they're stealing from us, little crumbs and little and I mean, so I've got a bunch of questions in this one, right? So, would you personally have a small little family, say the family of like 3, maybe 5, if you went extreme, of these little borrowers that lived inside your house, knowing that you'd have to give them little, I don't know, like thimblefuls of juice and like crackers and cookies every once in a while?
I don't want pets. I don't have a pet.
Would they be?
I mean, you have to.
They're tiny humans.
They're not. They're sentient. Yes, they are sentient. So in that way, they're not pets. But in that, you have to take care of them as you would take care of a pet. Like you have to be responsible. I'm talking about the responsibility part, right?
I mean,
I don't want pet responsibility.
Maybe, but also, couldn't you just drop them? Couldn't you just go and just get like a party size pack of Chex Mix and just let them have at it for a year?
Yeah, sure. That maybe. Right? I mean, maybe he needs to do that because he's can only do this for 2 days anyway, right? I mean, he can't really make a commitment
I'm not
to the
saying
family.
That you're going to die in 2 days. I mean, like if you had the I feel like this would be a fair trade-off, a very attractive one to almost anyone. Because imagine that all you have to do is pay someone at the most a box of crackers. I doubt it's even that much, but for the entire family, at most a box of crackers and maybe like a 2-liter of juice or water or whatever once a month. And you've got these little guys that can go around and inspect for any kind of like insect infestations. If you got loose wires, if you got mold growing somewhere, you just need someone to go and crawl under the house or in the attic or just in weird little places, like that weird screw behind the sink that you can't quite get at without going and buying some weird attachment. Like they could kind of manage a lot of that stuff. And I feel that you would be crazy to not opt in to have something like that for the low price of they just eat your crumbs.
Yeah, but you're having special time with your lady. Now you're like, do they like to watch? You start screaming obscenities or something.
I
They're
mean,
going to hear that because they're sentient. They're going to judge you as whatever you do in your house, and you do all the disgusting, weird things you do and never tell people about. They're going to know. They're going to be your Santa Claus.
but they're almost extinct, so maybe they should see what you're doing with your lady because this would give them an up. Because I guess so. This as I'm watching this movie, I had to limit it to 3, but it's like this is just 3 different movies combined to me. One of them is No Mobile because it's about small people that are slowly going extinct and must travel the world to find someone to procreate with. Otherwise, they all go away, right? So there's No Mobile. Then I had like Indian in the Cupboard just because of scale. You could also interchange that with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and I'll get into that part too. And then the movie Parasite, the Korean horror movie. I don't know if you've seen this one before.
That's on my Films and Filth podcast. That's coming up. So I haven't watched it simply because I'm going to have to watch it.
Okay, I'm not going to do any spoilers for you, but when you watch that movie, think back to Secret World of Arrietty, and there's so many different correlations between the two.
Okay, cool. No, that's one I'm certainly looking forward to seeing because just when it came out, I didn't. And now I'm like, well, yeah. It's kind of weird with podcasting. It's like once I don't know how you feel about this, but once you do like a movie or something or a TV show, it's kind of like it no longer exists in your life. It's like I'm kind of finished with it. I don't know if you feel that way because it's just a weird podcasting thing. Because something came up. Oh, it was yesterday's Enterprise, the Star Trek episode, and people were like, "Give me some ideas about it." And I was like, "Well, here's a podcast I made 4 years ago because I literally really haven't thought about this since. Even when I'm watching Star Trek, I haven't watched that particular episode because I feel, I just podcasted out of my system, maybe,
Yeah, it's the equivalent of writing down all your phone numbers into, you're putting them in your phone so that now that extra brain space is freed up. Although I never feel like I've got enough brain capacity. I'm not getting anything by forgetting so much.
I don't know what my phone number is now. Every time I store something,
We'll put it
I gotta
across
look
the
it
bottom
up.
of the screen. I'll figure out what it is.
Yeah, I have to go cellular and look it up. And when people ask for a phone number, whereas when I was growing up, the guy that lived across the street from my house, 662-5670. I remember that. That's not a working number, I believe, so I can say it. But and I didn't say an area code, but
I remember my childhood phone number.
but this wasn't mine. This was the kid across the street. I got that down. Do you
remember your own?
Yeah, I don't want to say that though because it still is my parents' number. I might have finally forgotten my university girlfriend's phone number. I think I had that stuck in my mind for a long time, but that one has finally left the mind.
Well, if someone says it, then you just turn into like an MK Ultra trance.
Yes, well, no. I mean, I'd probably recognize it if I heard the number again. It's kind of weird, like like we have work PCs or something you're logging into, like a system that they all have like slightly different passwords, and someone's like, "What's the password for this?" I'm like, "I don't know. My fingers know." Like I have to type it. I can't tell you. I can't just recall the numbers and tell you. But my fingers know what to do.
Yeah, there's actually some security methods. I don't know how secure they are, but they're considered security where like people will do passwords based on position of keys on a keyboard instead of actually spelling something out cohesive or something to remember. You just remember that you push a button here and then you skip over this many and you go down this many, and it's almost like gesture control on keyboards.
Yeah, okay. That sounds like a not bad idea, but no, I mean, the securities it's been getting to like yesterday, I had to put an app onto my phone for work, right? And I think I had to do 3 rounds of going somewhere and getting a verification code and going somewhere else and then going somewhere else for a different verification code to use here. And now I have to do this one on my phone. I can't do it on my iPad. And I'm just like, ah!
Right. So, and this is slowly making it so that having a phone is mandatory to live. Like if you don't have a phone, it would be like not having a wallet or like a social security number at a certain point.
Yeah, I do wonder if I would just like telling my office, like, "Hey, folks, I just don't have a phone,"
Yeah, well, you're fired. I mean, it's kind of like you're a weirdo now, and we don't want you associating with us.
Yeah. If you're not gonna have a tracker on you, what are you doing here?
And I can wind this back into the borrowers here because one of my thoughts was that the borrowers would be it would be the dream come true for Silicon Valley, or if you just needed a bunch of software developers, you could literally feed a team of 100 software developers their size with one Hot Pocket and a 2-liter Mountain Dew or Red Bull, and they're good to go, right? And technically, the size of them, not only does it not matter, but it would probably be even better, because now you don't need to set up a huge warehouse or offices or anything. You can say, here's a shoebox, now set up your team, and this app needs to be done within 300 hours. And they could feasibly do that if you made a computer small enough. And I feel like we already are more than capable of creating a supercomputer, like one that would rival the speed that you or I would have access as consumers. They could make that right now today in 2025 for these little tiny like action figure sized people, and they could put us out of work.
Yeah. You were talking about they're an extinct race. I mean, they do seem to be that, but we never quite know, because she has no idea how many there are. Are there pockets around the world?
Only seen one. She's I think that they're both supposed to be roughly the same age. So he's 14. I think so. I'm going to assume that she's probably about 14 or so. She's only seen one other person aside from her family that is like her in 14 years. So
she's going to have to hook up with Spiller.
That's literally her only option at this moment. And Spiller knows that. And by the way, Spiller, I guess, again, if you haven't seen the movie, it's about this girl. I'm just going to call the little girl Arrietty, and her mom and her dad. They live under this old lady's house in like this little constructed like miniature house made from an actual dollhouse at some point. And they live in here, and they've never seen, or at least the little girl has never seen another little person like her. So as far as she knows, her and her family are all that exists on the entire planet at this size, except this one other wild ruffian looking kid called Spiller. And he just happens to be this boy. But I think the implication is that, and if her and Spiller do not consummate at some point, then they're extinct. And when we're talking to Sho, who's the human boy, the human 14-year-old boy, he basically tells her, like, you are a doomed species. I think that's verbatim from the caption.
Yes, he gives a very hardcore speech to her.
And he's not being mean. He's just letting her know straight up. The quote is, you are a doomed species. And then she immediately says, we're not going to die out that easily, because she really gets upset. I mean, I guess I would too if someone... I don't know if I would feel if aliens were like, you're a doomed species, but she immediately says like, no, we're never gonna. And then, what's funny though is that he never sees her again after that. So I mean, who's right here?
Yeah. I don't know. Although I am sitting here thinking, like, maybe it's like in Japan, there's not many of them, but Ireland's flush with these guys, like maybe they're on Bolivia, something like that.
Well, okay. Well, so here's where we need to get into some of the specifics. So one of the first things that I thought of as soon as this movie started was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the scale feels incredibly consistent. For example, riding an ant is like riding on top of a big horse. A bumblebee is kind of like a helicopter. Like all these different scales of things are human to vehicle shaped. In Arrietty, in The Borrowers, the scale seems to just change scene to scene sometimes. For example, there's one scene where Spiller pulls out the leg of a grasshopper or a cricket, and the leg is like the entire size of his body, and everyone's kind of freaked out a little bit. But then there's another scene where Arrietty is outside and she's playing with one of those roly-poly bugs that turns into a little ball and like spins away. But I mean, technically, one of those roly-polies, you could probably like stack maybe 5 of them and you would get the size of a decent cricket. But when she's playing with it, it crawls through her hand like it's the entire size of her hand, but not that much bigger. So anyways, the scale jumps around. In this particular movie, her scale, they go from the size of a minifig to the size of a G.I. Joe.
Yeah, no, where I noticed that myself was when she first makes physical contact with Sho's finger. And when she touches Sho's finger, it's one scale. And then it cuts. Now she's on his hand and the scale is completely changed. So,
Right, and it makes sense because you just can't do certain or if you do, you don't have the same shots that I guess you're going for. So what I can't put my finger on this. Is this 100% artistic freedom and just creativity, or is there any part of this that is almost Kubrick style? They're intentionally trying to put you at unease or intentionally changing the scale constantly to play with your brain. Is this mind control?
I think it's kind of like willing suspension of disbelief, which honestly, that's kind of mind control when you think about it. It just sounds like a literature term. But if I'm willingly suspending my disbelief, then you are controlling how I'm thinking about this. So I guess I was about to say no, but now I've looped back around to yes.
Well, and the thing that I keep thinking of is in Totoro, that one damn scene with the frog that was so well constructed. And it was like, who spent this much time on this little scene about a frog in a puddle and getting the ripples just right? And so the eye for the level of detail, and we've already established that, Miyazaki's vision, he's willing to spend years, like months or years on a scene if need be, right? Meanwhile,
Right.
in this movie, we see this scale that's just jumping all over the place dramatically. So again, I feel like I have to give the idea that it's intentional, even though I've got no idea.
Yeah, although at the same time, like if Daddy Miyazaki had actually made this, maybe he would not have been up for that because
Right, maybe
he
the
would have
scale
screamed
would've
at people more. Maybe Hiromasa doesn't scream at people. Maybe he's nice, you know.
The movie still came out okay. Again, not a lot happens, and I can't tell if that's good or bad. I can't even tell if that makes it sink in deeper or not. I'll tell you one thing. If you ask me in a month or if you ask me in a year the plot of this movie, I think I could conjure it up. In a year from now, and you told me to explain Earthsea, it would be a little bit more murky.
No, like I said, I saw this 10 years ago. Saw it in pure Japanese, and I was just like, yeah, it's this little girl meets very little girl meets a boy in an old house. That's what I remembered. You know, I didn't even remember them leaving at the end because I guess the sense of danger didn't come through quite as much. I mean, you could definitely tell the evil maid and stuff, that sort of thing, but it seemed a little more like a scamper thing, I guess, because the dialogue does bring in that, like, again, the speech about you're a doomed species, dad being like, we can't trust the humans, we have to go, and you're like, oh, but she's met a nice human. But no, he's still right, they still have to go, you know.
Well, because they need to go and procreate regardless.
He's correct that their little house is no longer safe, even though, they made contact with a nice boy. It's just as soon as, once you tell a secret to somebody, it's not a secret anymore, right?
Yeah. You were asking before too, or you mentioned that maybe you don't want to have them live in your house because they're watching you just do all the weird things that you do when you think you're private. Do you think that this is the reason that they don't look at humans as gods? Because I kind of feel at some way that if I saw a version of me that was ginormous, like the size of a city, right?
Like picking your toes.
Yeah, like if I could fit inside my own fingernail, it would be hard to resist just the feeling that they were somehow superior or godlike. But in this movie, they are so overhumans. Like, they are not enamored. They're not. If anything, we are just a danger to them. And if we even know about them, which means that they know more about us than we do about them.
Right. One thing about this movie that's kind of interesting is it's laser focused. Like, it has world building. Like, watching this movie is like, spending a early, June day on a Japanese / English garden. It really feels like you're kind of hanging around there. Like, it's got that vibe. It's very realistic. The world building is perfect in the present, but we really learn nothing about the past and nothing about the future, right? We don't really know how the borrower's, culture works or anything like that, or what it was like in the past or any of that stuff. And the future is just a guess, right? They're off in a teapot. There might be a storm or a wave and they're all dead, like right after the movie. And the kid dies too because he did the botched heart surgery. Everyone dies. So everyone does die in the end, just like after the movie.
Has there ever been a sequel to this movie?
I don't believe so. It was quite successful. In America, it was actually I don't know if it still is, but for a while it was the most financially successful non-video game anime.
This one legitimately needs a sequel. Out of all the different movies that we've seen that kind of leave on cliffhangers in a way, this one seems like it deserves one because, yeah, what does happen? Do they go extinct? Is the kid right that they're a doomed species?
Let's see. There is a manga series that was done after, but I think it just covers the movie. Oh, and this article is just telling me about manga. It's not telling me about the Arrietty manga. Anyway, it is a Ghibli thing. I mean, Ghibli doesn't do sequels, right? And they don't do TV shows, and they don't do expansions. Which
they've never done a sequel.
As I was saying that, I was racking my brain, but I don't think Ghibli's ever done a sequel. So yeah, if you remember, Miyazaki was threatening to do a sequel to Ponyo for some reason.
Why do you say threatening?
Because a lot of the response to Ponyo was that it wasn't as deep as Miyazaki's earlier stuff. It was infantilizing. So there was a bit of a critical backlash against Ponyo. So people are like, no, don't make a sequel to that one. I personally, yeah, if you're going to make one, sure, why not? Ponyo or this one, both, fine.
Yeah, this is part of, I guess, the advantage of being such a bumpkin and being so ignorant of all these different movies right now is that I can watch Ponyo and be enamored at the novelty of it because I haven't really seen anything like that before. So I guess I'm not as critical. I've seen a lot of other critical reviews now of Ponyo that you kind of mentioned. I just don't see it. I think it's such a weird
I think those
movie.
are of the time reviews too. Look at the dates on them. I feel like people today are much nicer to Ponyo.
I guess so. I don't know. I'm just happy knowing that it exists. I don't know how else to describe that. Even if I didn't like it, I can't even tell the difference between if I like it or not versus me liking that it exists in the world versus all the other media that I've consumed. It's on its own like interesting category. But again, if I grew up in Japan, maybe I look at this and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's not weird enough.
I mean, it's like, hey, take the band Yes. They put out Fragile and Close to the Edge, and then comes out Tales of Topographical Oceans, which is very different. Every side of the album is a song, and everyone's like, what the hell is this? And hates it. And I think it's the best album. But when it comes out at the time, I could see where even like if you're a Yes fan, you're like, what the hell is this? But with a different perspective when it's not the new thing. Okay, I'll start drawing a little thread here. The Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, when The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the newest Spider-Man movie, it seems that much more horrible because it's the newest one. If they never make another one, that's the final statement on Spider-Man, and it kind of sucks. Now that they've made 4 more Spider-Man movies, you're like, what? It's still not a good movie, but you can watch me like whatever. That's why I kind of like the movie Batman and Robin now. But when Batman and Robin came out, I was like, what is this crap? And I hated it. Now there's much more Batman. I can appreciate it for what it is. There's so much more Ghibli now. It's like, oh yeah, Ponyo. It has a certain flavor of Ghibli, you know, and it's not the newest Ghibli anymore.
No, I 100% see what you're saying because it's part of Ponyo was mapping out the territory, and that was just one of the boundaries on the map that had to be drawn so that the rest of it could kind of like come into shape. So once you do that, maybe you don't want to live in Florida, but it's nice to visit Florida, and that's kind of Ponyo in a way.
Everyone seemed to kind of like this film. Rotten Tomatoes, 94%, 80 on Metacritic, 7.7.
I don't care about any of these stupid people's ratings.
No, I'm just curious what the general consensus is. 20 and then 23 million budget, 146. So this is I do like.
That's what I care about. I care about the commercial success. That's the true. That's the true tale.
Have you seen the Mr. Show? I think it's Mr. Show sketch where David Cross is talking. He's doing some kind of like infomercial about how the more money you have, the smarter you are. So it's like Einstein, it's like idiot. It's like what this guy gave all his money to charity. What a dumbass. So it's like the more money you have, the smarter you are.
There's an argument to be made, and I have an unironic. Just a voice. I'm not going to say it's a belief. It's a voice that's like, believe this. I don't listen to it. I take meds and it goes away. But that maybe we're all told that you can't take all your stuff with you when you die. it's a lie because there's a finite amount of space after you die to bring stuff. So if you can convince everyone else not to bring anything, and then you bring all your stuff, or like whoever dies with the most stuff wins. What if that's true?
Put a pin in that for when we get to Coco.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah, put a pin for that because that's going to be a real talking point when we get to that movie. But yeah, Arrietty is an unqualified success. I basically see, like we were talking with Tales of Earthsea about like Secession and Ghibli, right? Like the TV show Secession, but now it's like Ghibli. So I do see at some point him like besmirching his son Goro and making Yonebayashi like, you are my new son or something, you know? Because like you said, the scale thing in particular, I get that's a really good explanation of why maybe it's not quite the master. I mean, you know, but this definitely feels fully like a Ghibli.
This one too, I feel like you could show it to anyone and they're not going to be like, what's with the weird talking flame and the weird amorphous ink blob that's consuming frog wizards or something, right? Like this one is so straightforward. It kind of feels like a very polished David the Gnome episode. Grandma can watch this and, you know, like some weird millennial with brain rot that was born in the 2020s could probably also watch this and everyone understands what's going on. I think the difference is that there is a really weird morbid symmetry at the very end of the movie when you find and it feels like it's added here for a very deep reason. It doesn't need to, none of this had to actually be in the movie, especially since there's no sequel. But at the end, when you find out this kid has a terminal illness and he's about to die, and he's talking to an entire species that's about to completely die out, there's this very symmetrical tragedy in that, which didn't have to be in this movie whatsoever, but there it is. And I don't know, I feel like maybe the 5 or the 8-year-old TikTok brain rot kid maybe doesn't pick up on that one as much, an adult does, but otherwise the rest of the movie, I think any age, culture, like sort of interest group can watch this movie and understand it on like a level playing field.
I'm assuming you didn't watch Japanese. That's fine. But did they have English accents or American accents?
I could.
Oh, you watched in Japanese?
Couldn't find an English dub. Watched it in Japanese. So, but I did read the English captions, and there were some weird things that I needed to ask you about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. No, actually, it's funny because when I played it, started playing in English, and I was about to watch it in English because I thought it was because the original story is set in England, right? So I was like, oh, it's going to be European, so I'll probably just do it in English. But no, once I started seeing Tokyo Suburbs and stuff, I was like, okay, I guess we need to do this in Japanese. So I did.
The intro song was interestingly in English, even though the rest of the movie was in Japanese. I guess that's pretty typical.
I guess they were trying to also just make this one really, I mean, they really did make a push with international and North American audiences for this one. So that might have been part of why they did that. But this one has 2 concurrent English dubs. Like they were done, like one was done by Studio Canal and one was done by Disney. Of course, that's why we're covering this here. The Disney one has, let's see, Amy Poehler and Will Arnett are the parents. Carol Burnett is Haru, the maid, so that's kind of fun. But the reason I was actually going on Spider-Man rants earlier is this is Tom Holland's big screen debut in the English, the UK version. So he is Show in the and it's his debut. So I just thought that was a little interesting.
Okay. I honestly, right? Aside from the Carol Burnett reference, I don't know if I feel like I missed out on anything big there.
No, I don't think you did. Like it is kind of weird though, because like I said, when with How, it kind of made sense to watch that one in English because it had so much European stuff. This one, I remembered Arrietty's family, and that's probably why I was like, oh, it actually isn't an English garden, and I'd forgotten that the kid actually is Japanese. So it is a weird cultural mishmash, like the borrower's culture. You're like, shouldn't it be a little Japanese since they're in Japan, or do they come from portals? Like they do feel like they're, the Irish gnomes, right? Oh, and they do. If we're talking David the gnome, then yes, they do all die at the end.
Does David the gnome die at the end?
I think him and his wife just die of sadness or something. If I remember, it's something really depressing and weird.
I gotta be honest, man. Whenever David the gnome came on, it was like time to go and find something else to do. It was the most boring freaking cartoon in relation to all the cartoons that came on before it.
Okay, next time you're ranting, I'll go a little David the Gnome search and get back to you on the ultimate fate of David the Gnome. The other reason I was asking which version you watched, it says the Disney International dub version, which I guess I don't know what that means because okay, whatever. One of them contains a final monologue where Sho states that he never saw Arrietty again. He returned to the house a year later, indicating that the operation had been successful. However, he overhears rumors of objects disappearing in neighboring homes. So Disney was a little bit more like, yeah, let's double down. Let's set up a sequel here that we could do it, you know?
I kind of hate that, to be honest.
Well, that's not from that's like the Blade Runner thing. I just thought it was interesting. No, because I'm saying here it's just assuming everyone dies, where that suggests they don't. So
I kind of hate that when they explain all this stuff in the last seconds. Like, that just got tacked on. Come on.
No. Yeah, the other one, I just finished covering the Planet of the Apes live action TV series, and you're like, well, series over. I guess those astronauts are just living in the future ape world. They're not getting home. And then someone pointed out to me that Roddy McDowall did introductions in the early 80s for the TV show when they combined them in the movies. And in one of them, he states that he eventually helped the two astronauts get home. I'm like, no, he didn't. They're stuck in the future. That's how the series ends. But then Roddy McDowall saying it, so it's like you kind of have to, I guess that makes it real.
It makes me think of the Quantum Leap ending too, where they're just like, he never gets home or whatever.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's the best. That's just like, show over, screw you.
No, I did have a note here that I just wrote like, wait, it's over. That was the end. It just ends abruptly, kind of. And I even rewound it to make sure that I didn't black out, and like the UFO didn't come down and take
a pop song
15 minutes of my life or something. But no, the movie just ends. Like all of a sudden the credits are just scrolling.
Yeah. I mean, they're off, they're leaving. That's the end of the thing. That's where it does seem like there should be a sequel, but I guess that's the thing where that closing monologue kind of eats it, because it's like, if your movie ends that way, just let it end that way. Like if The Sopranos, if it ended and then, like James Gandolfini comes on, so let me tell you, it's like a black screen. He's just like, so let me tell you what happened.
So Tony went home and ate some more gabagoo and everything was good.
Yeah. So, if you are going to make the choice, I guess you shouldn't. Again, Blade Runner, this, and The Sopranos, you make the choice, you stick with the choice.
See, and they're speaking of I'm surprised that I didn't find, if there were two English dubs for whatever reason, I just couldn't find either one of those versions of it, which makes me mad, because when I'm watching cartoons, I don't want to feel like I'm reading a freaking book. But here we are. I read the whole book as it showed it to me on the screen, and every time they talked about people, in the captions, at least, it read human beings, like BEANS.
Same here. I also caught that and just assumed that was a mistake.
And was that what they're actually saying? Are they saying human beings in the audio, or do you not understand enough Japanese to tell?
I wasn't listening closely enough.
Okay.
If anyone wants to go check if when that comes on, if they are saying mame, that's bean. So Niku is not. That's month.
So every single time that they say whatever they're saying, we get the caption "human beings."
Okay, so I thought it was a misspelling. I actually didn't bother listening to Japanese because I just assumed it was. And if I'm reading the captions, I'm not listening to Japanese, right? But
maybe, but it also goes into if they don't revere us at all, like they're over us, it almost makes sense that they would also even almost intentionally like belittle us by just calling us beans.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself, and it's funny because they're bean size, right? But yeah, I'm kicking myself a little bit for not checking.
Yeah, I'm not the bean, you're the bean.
Yeah, really, it's like tally. You're a towel,
So a couple other just random questions. How the hell does she talk loud enough to be heard across a room standing outside of a window? And why does she have a deeper voice than Sho when she does that? Wouldn't her voice have to be ultrasonic at that point?
I don't know. I teach Japanese junior high school students, and somehow I managed to hear what they're saying.
Yeah, but she's literally the size of a grasshopper.
Ask me what my favorite food is.
Grasshopper?
No, just ask me what my favorite food is.
What's your favorite food?
Yeah, I gotta decipher that. So I could see, and then all the other kids seem to know what they're saying, right? So maybe kids are like good at hearing mumblecore a little better than
Oh, true.
we
No,
are.
that is very true. He's 14, so he can hear high pitched noises that adults can't hear. That makes sense, I guess.
And just kids, just say they seem to all and see. I'm like those damn kids. They all mumble to each other, and you can't understand what they're saying. That's what my mom always said when I was growing up. Enunciate more. I don't know if I enunciate on this podcast or not. So, mom doesn't listen. She didn't. I did radio for a couple of years, and she seemed to mostly stop saying that after that. If she listens to the music I made, she'll still be like, I can't understand the lyrics, which I don't think is a qualifier for music, but whatever.
Yeah, my favorite songs, I don't even know what the lyrics are. I just hear in my head what I want to hear, and then I find out later, and I'm like, no, that's wrong.
Go listen to a My Bloody Valentine album and transcribe those lyrics. This is kind of funny on a tangent. I just read a book about the making of Loveless, and it was talking about My Bloody Valentine's lyric writing method for that album, which was highly entertaining. The guitarist would just sing like the melody, right? Like in gibberish, and then the other guitarist, she would just like try and figure out what he was saying and write those down, and those were the lyrics.
This is like cool. John Dee and Edward Kelly summoning angels and reading sigils.
I was going to call it automatic writing, but it's kind of that thing. But
like a scry.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do things. I do find it interesting when you like David Bowie in the 70s would just him and Brian Eno would just cut up words and like throw them around and put them together and see what they get. For a little while, I was using, there's an app actually, it's Oblique Strategies, which is it's like Brian Eno's app. And if you're making music and you're stuck, you just, you open the app and see what it tells you. And then you do if you want to, you do what it tells you. Like maybe I don't know what I want to do for this guitar part. It's still on my phone, I believe. So
kill your parents.
Let's see. I'm stuck on I don't know how to approach the solo. So what should I do? Don't stress one thing more than another. Okay. See, it's oblique, right? So it doesn't tell you.
You could also just open a fortune cookie.
It is. You could open a fortune cookie, but it's fun to open Brian Eno's app and define an area as safe and use it as an anchor. Okay. Children's voices, dash, speaking, dash, singing. I don't want to put that in my song. So that's one I ignore, right? I hate it when they put children's choirs and songs and stuff, and children speaking in songs. Don't like it. Oh, that was the thing that made me switch, by the way. As soon as I had the English on for a minute or two because I did have the English, and as soon as it was either Arrietty or Show started speaking, I was like, no. It got back to my like, if they're under 18, they got to speak Japanese if it's an anime, because otherwise it sounds weird and wrong to me. And I probably because that's my job, right? I teach Japanese kids 18 and under, so if they sound like Tom Holland, it's just something's wrong now.
See, and I prefer that because it makes me forget that America isn't the only country in the world.
Right. But yeah, I'm like, hey, I know these kids and they sound wrong in the English dub,
So here's a few of the questions that I got, I guess, open for anyone, but I guess you're the only other one here, so I'll ask them to you. Is the maid evil?
I think the maid is stupid. That's my guess.
Go on.
I mean, I don't know. I guess she knows they're sentient though, so that suggests a propensity for murder, which would be a little more evil, a lot more evil. Does she understand they're sentient? I guess. Well, she knows they live in a little house. Yeah. Okay. I see where your question comes through. She's definitely drawn that way, to quote Jessica Rabbit, right? She's a nasty old crone, so she's got to be evil as far as how she's drawn. She is. What is she? Does she have intent?
Well, she calls the exterminator and tells them to take out and at that point, is she just Hitler and the exterminators just doing their job? You know what I mean? Like let's just say hypothetically, she calls the exterminators open up the floorboard. They see this tiny family living in there. First of all, do they go through with it? Because and if they do, is that murder? And is it illegal? Is it illegal to spray poison on a tiny miniature sized person? Do they not have all the same rights that I would assume that any other person, regardless of size, would have.
Are they people? Are they a different species?
People? Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of would we need to qualify? Because I almost feel that depending on the country and the time period, they would immediately be given complete rights. And then I guess I'll just jump to like the
borrowers have swapped genitals. That's canon now.
Well, that's very 2026. So yeah, they're very progressive. And I guess I'll just jump all the way to the end, but it seems like what are the ethics of breeding borrowers with humans in order to get different sized people, kind of like eugenic style, but you're not trying to eradicate anyone in particular, but wouldn't it be advantageous to society to have an entire class of people that were 6 inches tall, and then another class that was 12, 24, 36, 48. You go all the way up to, I don't know, 9, until you're like over 9 feet, I guess. But here's another thing too, right? The reasons that pygmies don't exist, I guess, is because, modern humans killed them all out. They just destroyed all the other pygmy populations until they're like negligible globally at this point, if they even exist at all. And then there's also claims that there were like 9-foot people, and this gets more into like biblical mythology stuff, but that a 9-foot race of people is now sort of a threat if you are 6 foot on the high end of the average, or if you're 5 foot. So it's like you see someone that's 9, you're like, if they form an army, they'll completely decimate us. So there's almost like a standard normalization here, but you can completely change the way society worked if you just had people that were sized all the way from 6 inches up to 6 feet, and each of those people could be highly specialized in the types of roles that they will perform in society. Is that ethical or not?
I have a movie to recommend to you. This one is not based on size. This one is based more on, I guess, sentience, which is 1962. Hold on, let me check that date. I don't remember where I put that page. Anyway, I think it's 1962's The Creation of the Humanoids. Have you ever heard of this movie?
No, go on.
It's very low budget. It's basically like 3 really long scenes. So keep that in mind. But so it's written very well. The dialogue is very good. It has very interesting ideas. But the ideas in this, I think there's something like it. Maybe this is actually the distant past or something. But there's been some kind of nuclear thing, and people can't procreate properly anymore. So they are creating humanoids, which are basically androids, and they come with a number, H1, H25, and I think people are like H38's the highest, right? Or whatever. But the number is how human they are. So if it's a H1, it really is just a automation robot that can do menial tasks and can't have a conversation or anything. But the thing is, at the end of the movie, there's like, there's actually humanoids that go up to H99. They're 99% human, So and that. So
I guess yeah. In that case, you're almost creating a literal sliding scale as to number 49. Sorry, we can do anything we want with you, but number 51, technically, you're like you've got rights, and we don't want to cross those. Like you'd have to almost pick the exact number humanoid. But in this scenario, we're talking about the exact same level of sentience, because again, you could hire a 20-person team of software developers that are 6 inches tall versus a group that's 6 feet tall. Well, I'm just going to assume that you have to pay the 6 foot tall ones more than the 6 inch tall ones, just because they could like pull their money together and just stay in a matchbox, right? They could like literally stay in a dollhouse versus the human being. So I mean, there's very practical reasons in which you would need to have all these different people at all these different sizes, and they all have the same level of sentience. Or you could have a genius little person or a dumb little person, and vice versa for any other size.
I know it's not your favorite movie, but I mean that's with at least 2 sizes. Avatar does that, right? Because the Na'vi are 9 feet tall and the humans aren't. And the humans can get their avatar, and now they're 9 feet tall, right? And
right.
A 9 feet tall Na'vi can probably tear apart a human pretty easily.
Yeah, and what's funny too is that the Na'vi have no place on Earth, but Earthlings can like go in and like change things for the Na'vi. But like
but they can't breathe air.
But like if they avatared into us, onto Earth, right? They would kind of suck at it because they would be used to being these huge 9-foot sort of creatures that can just like jump around and like travel through the entire planet, like everything's made for them. And now you just stick in the middle of like downtown, kind of like what is the Enchanted movie? Like if you like enchanted a Na'vi and now they just pop up under a sewer grate.
Yeah, that's a kind of a reverse Superman situation. You go to the new planet and now you suck more, which is probably more likely in most cases, right? If you're out of your natural environment, it's probably going to have an ill effect on you. So Superman, real lucky with that yellow sun stuff.
And honestly, Superman's got enough prequels and sequels. This movie has neither of those two. I feel like it would work both ways too, because I also want to know, why do they distrust humans so inherently? And I want to know like what's their religion. I want to know like what they think is good and bad and ethics. Are there criminals? I have to assume that there's like criminal versions of them, and they have this weird guilt association because they call themselves borrowers and they realize that they're sneaking into human beings' houses and they're taking their water, their electricity, little scraps of food. They realize that they're almost seen as stealing in a way. They never say stealing, but they imply that them borrowing can get them in trouble and that they have to kind of keep hidden for all these different reasons.
Okay, I'm looking a little bit more into the actual books where we can actually answer several questions. There are 5 books. So if you want sequels, there's 4 more books you can read. Human Beings is correct. That is what the primary cause of trouble in Swords of Law is the interaction between the minuscule borrowers and the human beings, whether the human motivations are kind or selfish. It doesn't really get into why, but that is not a typo. That is correct. So to answer your beans question, it was they call them beans. It seems the series so this is the first book, right? But they find new houses, but Arrietty keeps making friends with big people and they keep having to move again. So she's too gregarious, I guess. She's a dumb kid. I'm not quite sure.
She keeps making the family move. She's like a problem child.
Yeah, it seems like this happens several times.
Is this just an allegory to like a loose daughter that keeps shacking up with like the local bumpkin, like the local terminally ill kid? And the parents are like, not again. We got to move.
Let's see what happens in the last one. This is 1982's The Borrowers Avenged. The Clocks. They're the name of the family gets a name. They're the Clocks. It's Arrietty Clock. She does have a last name. They settle uncomfortably to her new home. Arrietty is allowed to go outside for some reason and do all the borrowing for 2 borrower families. She discovers that her human friend, Miss Menzies, okay, goes to the church to arrange flowers, but she's forbidden to speak to her. It goes on. And anyway, it seems like she just keeps doing the same thing. So, yeah, she's a problem child if you want to do sequels.
Which is crazy because her only real goal in life is to find a mate, right? That's pretty much
says there's 2 families in the later books. I guess mission achieved, but the books are successful enough to keep writing them.
So what would you do if you found a small family of 3 like living in your house?
And they're sentient.
What would you personally do?
Are they in the house I live in here? Or are they in the family house, which is more likely to have that sort of thing?
They're in your house.
They have to be in this house, don't they?
They're in your house, yeah.
I don't know. That's a very good question. I guess it depends on if they're assholes or not.
Really? That would have an impact? So like you wouldn't immediately...
I'm not going to step on them, but I could like, time to move, folks. Maybe. I don't know. I think it does depend on who they are, because if you have assholes living in your closet, you don't want them there, if they're bopping you on the head at night because they think it's funny or something. If they're like the little ashes in the Evil Dead, that's going to suck.
Well, I guess I'm thinking too along the lines of like there's ET rules where you realize you have to keep it secret, otherwise the government comes and dissects everybody and they're dead now, right?
See, ET's a little harder because ET has trouble communicating with you, so it's kind of hard to tell exactly what ET's up to. Whereas,
right, yeah, this is an ET that like speaks his mind.
If the little people want to come out and talk about movies and music, then yeah, sure, you can stay in the closet. Please don't watch me doing it. Although then you never know, do you? Maybe they like to watch. That's the crawl on my thing, right? I'm like, that's what gets me. I'm like, what? Even if they say they don't, maybe they do.
You would never know. Yeah, they find holes in like the walls that you wouldn't even know are there.
In that case, it's better if I just don't know that they live in the house, right?
So on that level, this is where we're going to get into the ethics of eating horse, and I want to hear more about your different horse meals in a second. But generally, Americans don't eat horses because they're supposed to be the symbol of freedom in the Old West, and there's like cultural reasons only that we don't eat horses. Although if you look and see the actual legal reasons, most of those legal reasons are because there's not an industry set up that raises horses meant for consumption, so that therefore it's a catch-22. Therefore, there are no horses that are suitable for consumption because they've got different sorts of, drugs in their systems that they can't necessarily like feed to someone. So the fact that they don't breed them for food, and because there aren't slaughterhouses that are, made to process horses, then it means that it's not safe to eat them because we don't have the infrastructure to do it. But all that would take, I mean, I'm sure that you can go and find like a Purdue chicken farm, show sponsor, by the way, where they're just absolutely living in their own filth, and you would never want to eat one of those that came out of that factory. Like, what would be the difference between just raising a horse in that same environment and serving the horse up? And part of that comes down to sentience. And it's the same reason that, say, like eating dolphins is looked down upon, at least in the States. And there's other certain animals. I think turtles are somewhat, maybe not officially blacklisted in all 50 states, but turtles are also looked down upon because maybe not as much as sentience, but the fact that they can have a lifespan that's roughly the same lifespan as a human being. Same reason as like parrots, even though I think parrots maybe don't have a lot of meat. But
here's something interesting. So, sorry to interrupt this, but this does tie in. It seems that this is a long-going thing. Pope Gregory III banned or tried to put a ban on horse meat in the year 732. It seems one of the main reasons is that horse meat was eaten as part of Germanic pagan religious ceremonies. So it seems like it's kind of a religious thing too.
Well, there's religion reasons, but I think that even right now in 2025, there's a sliding scale of sentience. And I guess one of the exceptions, which is weird, is like octopus. Octopi are actually incredibly sentient and smart compared to other animals that people get up in our way smarter than pigs and dogs, I think, right? But culturally, not a lot of people care whether or not you're eating an octopus in the state, or I don't think anywhere really, unless
They're so weird.
But I mean, like, where I would love to know if you could like plot, all the way from cockroach or something, or like cricket protein, all the way up to a human being, right? And I would assume right close to where the human beings are at, you've got like the dolphins and horses and all this stuff. Where would little people be? Where would like Arrietty show up on that sliding list? Would they be right next to humans? Would they be under dolphins? Would they be above, or you know what I mean? Because if it's a sentient scale, then they would have to be on par with humans.
Yeah, I think these have to be like, one, it seems not very many people know about the little people, the borrowers, right? You'd have to be able to tell they're pretty smart because they're using tools, they're leaving little trails that show thought. But that's why when you asked if the maid is evil, I was like, maybe she's just stupid, it's hard to tell a little bit.
Well, because she treats them like she found a bug in the garden. She puts it in a jar and pokes some holes in the top of the thing.
So does she really think she just found a bug in a garden? That might be really what she thinks, I
mean, she tells the exterminators, you're looking to kill these little tiny people. So again, if you're the exterminator, someone calls you over and you're like, look, we just do like rats and stuff, and you show up and there's an actual little family there, like in their living room, terrified of you, and they're screaming because apparently you can hear them in their normal voices at speaking level despite the size, and they're like, please don't kill us, we're terrified for our lives, that poison will kill us. do you still go through with it because that's what you were hired to do? Or is this like you're murdering human beings?
I don't know. Did Dr. Seuss do this just as well with Horton Hears a Who? That keeps the sound thing also like more realistic, while everything else is fantastical and weird because it's Dr. Seuss. But that one does account for the fact that the Who's are very tiny and you cannot hear them.
There's another thing too that came up with the scale difference again between like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and in this movie, would just in their interaction with water and liquids. Because, and again, this is like where the scale thing jumps around, because there's some scenes in which they have a teapot, but when they pour a cup of tea, it's literally just a single drop of tea, and that fills up the entire cup. And it's actually really interesting visually. But if you were to look at Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, a single drop of liquid is instant death in that movie, just because the surface tension alone basically surpasses the force of gravity on your body. So if you walk too close to a big droplet of water, you just instantly get sucked into it, and then you either drown or it kind of crushes you, or you like become part of it. And in this movie, Arrietty, they kind of jump between these different scales to where nothing seems to really be dangerous to them that you would expect. I would expect if I was shrunk down to the size of a bug, that everything is now a danger to me.
See, I think they're bigger than bugs. I think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, they're smaller. Like you said, action figures. So I'm assuming that they actually are Arrietty's the size. Actually, Arrietty's smaller.
Right, but again, remember that Spiller pulls out a cricket leg, and it's his entire body length. Right, and he didn't say locust. And even if he did say locust, I mean, I guess there are locusts that would rival
that people eat in this prefecture, as I mentioned before.
That's right. Okay, maybe it meant to say locust in that, but he said cricket.
Yeah. Cicada.
And another just a suggestion that they might all be dead, because that's just every Disney and Ghibli movie now. When she goes to see Sho in his room, he puts her behind his back because the maid comes in, right? And then he leans back on the bed. She runs away and he leans back. And I was just thinking, how easy would it be that he just killed her in that moment? If she was hiding behind the pillow, like he didn't even think to like slowly not move and then say, hey, where are you? I'm going to move now and I don't want to kill you. I mean, she had escaped and like went through the wall or something.
Yeah.
Into a secret passage. But he's being very haphazard with her life, knowing how fragile she is.
Oh, damn. I guess how strong are her bones? Are they actually like little snappy bones, or are they real? Do they have like? Yeah, that's interesting. How? Because the water. By the way, the first time I saw this movie, it was just on TV, so I didn't start at the beginning. I think they were drinking out of the mugs, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" Because I didn't know they were little people yet.
At what point do they become competition to us? Like, there's a difference between a little group of, 5 of these miniature people are living in your house and surviving off your crumbs.
Well, at these numbers, at least 500 years.
Right, but I'm saying, like, how many would it turn into an infestation to where you're actually considering wiping some of them out, either because they're going to eat you out of house and home, or that they might possibly overpower you in some way? Or
in this movie, they maintain their ethical line, though. They're like, we don't borrow anything that humans will notice is missing, right? Like we won't notice if a sugar cube is gone, so they steal a sugar cube. They borrow. They're going to eat the sugar, though. They're not borrowing. They're stealing.
Yeah, they're not borrowing any of this, and you're never getting anything in return. Again, which is why I think that this compares with the movie Parasite. Just the name of it, Parasite, is kind of like it's a parasitic relationship between them instead of symbiotic. If it were symbiotic, it's like, hey, leave us out a cookie every once in a while and we'll let you know if there's a leak in the roof because we can get eyes on that. It's weird that sort of relationship doesn't exist. And I guess that's another one of the reasons why I almost want to know something about like a prequel for this.
There's a prequel too, it seems. So this lady, Mary Norton, is doing you solids here. It seems. Sorry, I'm still looking at the Borrowers Avenged here. There actually was a description, which I didn't look in detail, but maybe I'll do that now.
And wouldn't it be ethical for humans to breed these people if we knew they were going to be extinct? Like, it seems it would be easier for humans to find all the different little people out there and then help them get together, right? If you can put them in a car and drive them for an hour, that's farther than they're going to travel in a year, it seems like.
Okay, the prequel just seems to happen before the first book, but nothing it concerns the small adventures Stainless has when he gets lost. Most borrower names are borrowed from human objects. Stainless is named after items in the kitchen cutlery drawer. So it seems that actually the borrowing is names. They're stealing the stuff, they're borrowing the names.
Okay. Steelers didn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like that the borrowing is actually just like they're in the drawer looking for stuff and it says Stainless, and I guess they can read English. So, our next kid is named Stainless. That's idiocracy naming procedures, but whatever, was it Beef Supreme, right? You see Beef Supreme, you name your kid Beef Supreme.
Oh, I know that you already implied that 3 is too many because they can watch you doing whatever weird stuff that you're doing in your house. I was thinking that my cutoff is probably around 15 or so. Once there's 15 of them, now I'm getting creeped out.
Think about, they say like an effective like group that works directly together. 8 is what they say is the highest number. So 15, they're going to have interpersonal issues.
So it'll be easier for me to conquer and divide them, you're saying?
Oh, well, maybe that, or maybe it'll just be annoying because you'll have like squabbling little people in your house who are like, I'm not talking to Spatula anymore.
I guess I'm considering more of at what point are we competing for resources?
Trojan XXL is really pissing me off right now, So I'm just trying to think of the most amusing borrowed names I can.
I like the idiocracy rule.
Yeah. I'm gonna have a squiz at my notes just to do that. I think I feel like I said I was going to look up something earlier and forgot to do that. Sorry for the people screaming at their phone for that. I wrote Spiller as like a fairy tale version of Spicoli, from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay, I kind of got me. I can't remember the name of the movie. There was a movie with Tim Allen where his kid, or he finds some kid that's been like
Jungle to Jungle. I believe it's Jungle to Jungle.
Damn, there you go.
One of the worst movies ever put out by the Walt Disney Company, and that's saying something.
Well, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw Slimer. What's his name? Slimer. Spinner. Remember,
he's named after something in the house, which does make some of the names easier to remember.
What the hell is a spinner? Like a salad spinner?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like something like, I don't know. Spinner sounds like, I don't cook. Sounds like something you would find in the kitchen or something, right?
Is this like a Japanese utensil? What the hell is a spinner?
Okay, let's. I'm going to type in spinner and see what. Now I've forgotten what the other thing I was looking for. Spinner kitchen. Spinner in a kitchen. Let's see.
But what the hell's an Arrietty?
Yeah, it makes a salad. It's a salad spinner. Yeah, I am now thinking about the other people's names, which doesn't make
salad
sense.
Spinner.
Pod works. Okay.
Salad Spinner only came out in like the 60s, I think. 50s or 60s.
Well, the book was 1952, so
okay.
Maybe it was new and exciting. Homily kitchen. Unless maybe they just found a homily sitting around the house. Except it's a Japanese house, so they wouldn't have a religious one. I don't know where they got homily from then. She boils straight. Yeah, I don't know about homily.
Well, again, Arrietty
yeah.
is not a kitchen utensil.
The problem is if you look up Arrietty, you're just going to get this movie, right? So it's kind of hard. Okay, Arrietty name meaning. The name Arrietty, this is AI overview, by the way. The name Arrietty is generally associated with the meaning home ruler and is considered of Germanic origin. I guess home ruler? Kind of. I mean, that's not a borrowed name, but I guess it at least has to do with what's happening. She rules. She wants to rule this home eventually. She's going to take over. She's just a 14-year-old kid now, but she's ambitious. Speaking of when the borrowers are going to take over.
Well, and I guess ultimately I'm really wondering if they would have any ethical issues with hurting or eating us.
Right. What were you saying about Spinner before that? There's literally something I was going to look up. Oh, well. Now people are double screaming at their phones. So look it up yourself, people.
I was thinking, let's say that she hooks up with Splinter, and they have little Splinter babies.
Splinter the rat?
Yeah, or
that would
whatever,
be cool.
Splinter.
No, hooker with Splinter. That's great. I like that.
But now, are they condemning their children to a life of incest or doom? Right? Like, you are a
or
doomed
do you just
species.
keep? Well, now you have more people to search for more families, or you're just a doomed species, like you said, right?
But again,
like,
if you really cared about that, then you would be trying to team up with humans, because humans could probably find more of your people than anyone else could. Although I don't know, maybe I'm misinformed, because also her mom screams from, I want to say, at least a football field away, and somehow she hears it.
they got super lungs. Yeah.
So why aren't they all just screaming all the time? Like, hey, I need to procreate. And eventually someone would hear them, right?
Yeah, but they have to be around the house, and maybe Spiller does hear this. I mean, he kind of finds them, right? And he's a bit feral. He's like a tracker or something. So that's going on.
New segment that we're not going to introduce, Rule 34. I'm sure if you did a Rule 34 on Secret World of Arrietty, it would...
You don't do that. Don't do that. But yes, I'm pretty sure you're going to get something. Let's see. Anything else we want to throw out in this? Home ruler. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here's what I wanted to this might even be just a subconscious thing, but I was kind of thinking like we're in this old worn out house. The garden's getting old and overgrown. Japan's got its aging society. So in a way, Japan's kind of like dying out. I mean, it's not like there's plenty of people here still, but yeah, it is like, I think the average age of a farmer in Japan is now 69 years old. So that's kind of insane. So, in a way, I wonder if subconsciously, like with the borrowers, we're all dying out is kind of like a bit of Japanese malaise, feeling or something.
You said it was how old? 69?
69 is the average age of a farmer in Japan now. You retire and then you start farming.
59 in the US.
Okay, still pretty old then. So I guess farmers are just old coots these days. But that's kind of thing. Like my father-in-law, he grew up on a farm. Like that's the family house I'm talking about. It's like super old school. It's tatami rooms, that sort of stuff. So he grew up as a farmer. I think started off doing a little farming, but it was the 80s bubble, 70s or whatever. So he ended up working for a company for 30 years. They sent him off to Vietnam for a couple of years. That sounds horrible, but no, he worked for his company in Vietnam for a few years. They didn't send him off to Vietnam.
Man, could you imagine deploying like a little bomb full of these little people on another country and just been like, go Rick? It would basically be the Merlin versus the witch and Sword in the Stone, right?
Yeah, I keep thinking I'm going back to Army of Darkness again and thinking about all the little ashes for that, but
either way, I guess I'm just constantly thinking of ways to exploit or weaponize this little race of people.
That's why they have to stay hidden, right? Maybe Little Show is cool with them. Although he still is like depressing. He's still having his rant with Arrietty about how they're all doomed. So maybe she didn't need to meet him.
In my mind, it almost feels like this would be one of the untapped ways to extend the shelf life of humanity. That if we could reduce our size to the point where we're, the size of action figures, there's obviously a lot that you're compromising by getting down to that size. But if you've got the technology that can still transport you and do all the things that you need to, maybe that's the next step. Once AI completely takes over and robots are running the factories and we're all eating Beyond Meat and like everything else has been lined up, the next step in human evolution is we figure out how we can get 6 inches in size, because then we've got infinite resources relatively, right? Compared to all the other doomsday scenarios where we're running out of space and we're causing all of this pollution. Like, it seems like it would solve almost all of those issues.
No, when you said 6 inches in size, I'm like, that's why it's never going to happen. Nobody. That doesn't sound like a brag. 9-inch nails, man, at least, right? Anyway, it would be just, I don't know. I'm thinking I don't want to get shrunk down. That's the bad side of a Twilight Zone episode. You know, I saw that. Well, one
But
time,
only if it's just you, but if it's the entire world, and we still have all the capabilities that we did as like, you know, we still got factories. They're putting out full size everything that we need, or just coming across like a watermelon, right? Imagine being able to survive off of a watermelon for a month, as opposed to it being like a snack over the course of a hot summer day.
So I'm sitting here thinking of, I was looking up what the origin, I didn't find it, but the bottled city of Krypton from Superman. And I was trying to be like, did they all do that? Did they shrink themselves down on purpose, or were they like cursed by a wizard or something? Do you remember?
Because I guess my implication as I'm thinking about this is that they do represent a superior form of sentient humanity versus us. Like, we're big and dumb and slow and inefficient compared to what they are.
Oh no, the Kandor, the bottled city of Kandor from the planet Krypton was that the Brainiac did that. Okay, so they didn't choose to do that. Just checking. I don't know all the details on weird Superman stuff. Arrietty, do you have any other things you want to throw out on this one?
No, I'm again. No Mobile meets Indian in the Cupboard meets Parasite.
Little bit of that darned cat, I guess. We do get the fat cat. That seems to be cool with the little people, so I guess that's good for the most part.
Well, he has to be told that by the dying kid. So I imagine after the kid dies, if you don't pay attention to the U.S. dub, that cat goes back and probably tracks them down and kills them.
Yeah. I did write down one quote that's observe first, then decide. Good advice.
I guess unless you're into like sports.
Even in sports, I feel like you take that 1 second, you know. You observe first, decide then you're in the zone, and then you've decided, so now you move. Right?
Yeah, but maybe you're not in flow state though. Flow state would not be observe and then decide.
Right. Well, I'm thinking once you decide, you enter the flow state is my thought.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. And then there was another point in this movie too when it showed, and there's probably one of my favorite visual cues where it shows them traversing from where they're at in the house to like the rest of the house. And they've set up all these different nails as like a walkway, and then little staples that are in the side of the house. And they use the staples like a little ladder. I thought that was kind of genius. But one of my thoughts too, because as she's jumping across these nails, she looks down and it's a pretty large fall, right? But if she fell, would she be okay? Because her body mass would be so light. It would be like an ant falling. Like, they don't die on impact if they fall like a couple feet.
But if she bonks her head on that nail on the way down, that's going to cause some damage, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. What are the physics of like? Could she still slip and die in a bathtub, or is she small enough that would never happen to her? Because again, that's making a good argument for them being superior beings. So I mean, the only real downside is that I guess a bug or a bird can kill you, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for that kind of trade-off.
But they have the actual bone strength of a human, and they're like superpowered, aren't they? And in which case they would be better. So again, this movie doesn't get into that stuff. Just one more thought that we just did Tangled, and I was thinking at the beginning that this is kind of like almost a Rapunzel Tower situation, except these are her real parents, and it's just like the reality of the situation that she's kind of stuck in this place because it's a big deal that she's going to go out borrowing with dad, right? She probably doesn't get out of the house much.
And there's also an interesting like existential lesson here for kids that maybe goes over their heads if they're too young, but that the dad is right, and you already mentioned this, that once they're seen, they have to move because it's no longer safe. And he was 100% right about that. But there's no happy ending version of this. Like, that's actually what happens at the end of the movie. It's like, oh, they got seen, time to move, the end.
And it seems those are the other books. They hang out for a while, they get seen, time to move, the end.
I mean, this is kind of what you would do if your kid was like a serial killer, right? Is that like, oh my God, he killed someone again. We need to move.
Oh, go watch the Bates Motel show.
I've not
Or
seen
not.
that one. Yeah, this is an example. Like she's basically
honestly,
Norman.
to be completely honest, just watch Psycho again. You don't have to watch Bates Motel. The first season was one of those shows where the first season is like pretty good, and then it just keeps going.
I assume you mean that great movie with Vince Vaughn, right?
Yeah, of course. And William Macy is the psychologist. Yeah,
And Busta Rhymes on the soundtrack.
All right. Oh yeah. What did you think of the pop songs in this one? I remember you saying that I wasn't into them, to be honest. You were saying that you didn't like the Earthsea pop song, so I wondered if these were better or worse or about the same.
I didn't care for them. I've got very myopic taste in music these days, and I'm not embarrassed about it.
Yeah, soundtrack much better. Pop songs, I was like, whatever. They're they put it out so they could have a single to go along with the movie.
I want to say 10 times out of 10 when it comes to Ghibli movies, I would prefer traditional Japanese music to pop music 10 out of 10 times.
Well, they don't have traditional. I always think of the weird synthesized sweep of the Joe Hisaishi stuff, which is not. I mean, it's not on traditional instruments. It might use a Japanese scale, though. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, I don't care what instruments they're using. I think that you can still have just like the same way that like Hooked on Bach, the guy that replays all of Bach's music on like a Moog synthesizers in the 70s. Technically,
Clockwork Orange soundtrack.
That's still Bach. Switched on Bach. I think that's what it was called.
Switched on Bach. That's right. There's a couple of them. So yeah.
So in that way, I still consider Switched on Bach to be Bach. So even if you're using like modern synth, yeah.
I can agree with that. I was just trying to parse the the Totoro stuff or Spirited Away, because it's very glimmery, modern technology. But yeah, the scale is old school, so makes sense.
That's like using all the black keys.
Well, actually, I compose a lot. I might replace it with a real Moog, but a lot of times I will compose with the Annie Moog app because I can choose the scale and it'll just give me those keys, which obviously you can't do on a real keyboard, right? You have to know. So for me, it's just like, oh, I can put in like Dorian scale and I don't have to think about it. Now I just find the melody with the keys.
No, I gotta tell you, man, I do have a keyboard that has that mode on it, so you can tell in exactly what chord progressions you want, what scale you're in, and no matter what key you hit, it'll just play the next closest one that you were supposed to hit.
Ah, okay. Well, this one will rescale the keyboard for you, so it's still I don't, which is useful, but Mini Moog don't do that for you,
Well, most Mini Moog stuff that I hear is not necessarily always in tune or coherent anyways.
No, you gotta leave it on for 30 minutes before it stays somewhat in tune. Even the newer ones, I think you kind of do. Anyway, that's Mini Moog talk, not many people talk. So I guess we'll wrap up for today, unless you got something else on your mind.
No. What do you got going on this week? You've always got a million different podcasts happening. Oh, geez.
Actually, some of the stuff we were talking about, your different scales. Again, this is not size, but coming soon over at the Imprison in Prison podcast, where we did 1967's The Prisoner before. Listen to that. Watch the show. It's on YouTube.
I did watch the first 2 episodes since we last talked. The Prisoner.
Yeah.
Can't get into it. I don't know what it is, man. Does it get like 400% better by episode 3, or by the end of episode 2, if it's not clicking, does it just not click?
Skip ahead to Hammer versus Anvil. Try that one out. I feel like that's kind of the most...
The most interesting things that happen is a guy almost stole a helicopter, and then they get attacked by like one of those big like $10 bouncy balls from Walmart. Like a ball comes after you and it touches you and you pass out. I don't know. Like I'm missing something.
Okay. Yeah, they definitely get into weird MK stuff. But yeah, that feed, we are now going to start doing the show that's, I guess, more popular with people, Severance, right? Which also has like, in this case, having your mind altered to have a different workspace and use people in that way. So we're going to be in a different kind of prison, I guess you could say. So we're going to be doing that. I mentioned Films and Filth, where we will be doing Parasite in like a year, I guess. And we just finished up the original Twilight Zone at Time Enough podcast. So dig all that stuff. What you up to?
Well, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that maybe you like podcasts in general. So not only do I have the Occult Disney podcast that we've been doing. We're branching out too with Cartoon Cabal. More on that soon. I've also got just the Paranoid American podcast. You can go and find that, do a bunch of interviews with people. A brand new one called Under the Docs, where we watch documentaries and review them. And I guess for the first, I don't know, I'm just going to throw out a number, like the first year's worth of documentaries. There's a weekly show. They're all conspiracy documentaries in some regards. So we're going back and rewatching all the Alex Jones movies. We're watching Zeitgeist. We're watching Loose Change, just all of the ones that I kind of grew up on, and reviewing them from a 2025 lens and retrospect. And do they hold up? Can we fact check some of it? Sometimes it's fun to debunk. Sometimes it's not fun to debunk, but the entire show has been like therapeutic for me. And if you have never gone through the schizophrenic rage of just watching nonstop YouTube documentaries on 9/11 and like insider DC cults, let us do the hard work for you. So you can just go and just search for Under the Docs, and you'll find a couple different episodes. And again, it comes out weekly on Tuesdays.
All righty. I guess we will start experimenting then. Get ready for your brave new utopia of differently scaled people and size, and make the world better, make a better place.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.